I am so tired of hearing of Muslims overeating at Iftar, feeling disgusting after, burping their way through Tarawih, coming back home, passing out on the couch, and then wondering why they feel so terrible in Ramadan. In this video, we're going to talk about really easy ways to stop overeating at Iftar so that you can implement them and get in control. Assalamualaikum, this is Amanah from Amanah Fitness, and today is a very important topic because so many Muslims are overeating at Iftar on a regular basis. Some studies show that in some populations, up to 60% of families investigated in this particular study actually reported gaining weight in Ramadan. So that's really, really crazy. A lot of that is due to the improper food choices, and a lot of that is due to just overeating at parties, at Iftar parties, and just not being in control, which is what we want to talk about today. Some easy tips to get you back in control, inshallah. All right, so tip number one, we got 10 tips for you today. Tip number one is to start every Iftar with a drink of water. Okay, this sounds really simple, but the reality is that the vast majority of Muslims are not doing this. Now, studies show that people who start their meals off with a glass of water, they report higher satiation levels, so they feel fuller, and they're less likely to overeat in that meal. Been studied, and that's the case. And keep this in mind, if you don't start off the meal with water and you just start eating, and you eat to the point where your stomach is full from food alone, you still have to get water into your belly. So if you eat just food alone to the point where you feel the food pressing on your stomach, obviously once you add water on top, you will feel bloated and stuffed. So if you eat to that point, you're just asking for overeating in that case, but starting off with a cup of water really helps you because you fill up your stomach a little bit, and then that controls just the entire amount of food that you're eating. Really easy tip, start every meal with a glass of water. Awesome. All right, number 2 tip here is to use smaller plates, okay? So most people eat in a big dinner plate like this, right? Now, I would like to suggest, maybe this sounds a bit crazy, that you can actually eat in a salad plate. And you might think, that sounds really stupid. Why would I do that? I want to fit as much food on my plate as possible. But that's exactly the case. Now, some studies have shown that it was a very interesting study actually. It was done in a population of moviegoers. So people who went to the movies, some of them were given a huge container of popcorn, and the others were given an even bigger container of popcorn. So all of them were given popcorn that was bigger than what they could eat, right? But the people who were given the bigger amount of popcorn, they actually ate 45% more popcorn than the people who had a slightly smaller container, even though none of them could finish the popcorn they were given. So plate size affects the amount you eat. It's just a proven fact. So if you shrink down the size of your plate, say going from a dinner plate, just shrinking it down slightly to a salad plate, you're not losing that much space. But what happens is there's a psychological effect. You're going to be eating less because the plate in and of itself is a satiation cue. Now, one of the things that's very interesting that we discuss, in food psychology is what are the cues in your environment that actually make you feel full. And reaching the end of your plate is a major fullness cue. So if you shrink down your plate, you're going to be eating less food. Done deal. That's easy. All right, so next one has to do with your fork. So you're going to remember this little ditty, which is fork down, slow down, chew down. Okay? Fork down, slow down, chew down. And what that is that, look, if you've ever been eating Iftar and you're just going and going, the food is going from plate to mouth, and like your fork is just going like miles a minute, just shoveling food in your mouth, obviously you're eating at a very, very high speed. And what happens is that the brain actually takes longer to process that you're full. So a lot of people will finish their Iftar meal literally within 10 minutes. And it takes your brain longer than that, to process that, I'm full, I've eaten enough. And so we're actually eating ahead of what, we need to process that we're full. So if you slow down the rate at which you're eating, it's easier for your brain to understand, okay, I'm eating, I'm full, and I don't require any more food. Now, slowing down is obviously great, but we need some techniques to make that happen. So a major thing is putting your fork down between bites. So you take a bite and actually just put the fork down, just put it down, step away from the fork, right? So you're gonna put the fork down, and then while the fork is down, you're gonna start chewing your food. Now, if you've ever been eating and you chew a little bit and then you start like swallowing and you feel whole food like just being stuffed down your pipe, That's not how you're supposed to be eating, right? You're supposed to chew your food so it's in a really soft form to go down. So a signal for you to check yourself, if you're eating at a rate where, you fork in hand, shovel into mouth, 3 quick chews and then swallow the whole food, you're obviously eating at a way too fast rate. So we want to fork down, slow down, chew down so that you can stop eating at this very, very fast rate. It sounds funny, but this is the reality. The vast majority of Muslims are eating crazy fast, crazy amounts. We got to slow it down. All right, slow down. So another thing, which is a really nice tip, is to make it spicy. Now, anyone who's desi will like this tip, but the reason for that kind of relates to what we discussed earlier. When you eat spicy food, you're naturally forced to slow down and drink water, right? So eating spicy food, obviously you're going to be drinking more water, you're going to be pausing, and you're going to take breaks to sip the water. That's great. That's really, really important. So just adding a bit of kick of spice can help you slow down as well. And, even if you're not baking that into your food, feel free to, sprinkle a little bit of additional spice on top of your food, especially if it's something that you find that you're very prone to overeating. So maybe your favorite ethnic dish, maybe it's some biryani, maybe it's some curry, and you always find, I can't control myself on this one. Adding some chili, adding some spice is a great way to put on the brakes, force yourself to slow down, just add a bit of spice. All right, so with that fullness, next tip. So this tip number 5 is to add more fiber. Now, we've talked a lot about fiber. We mentioned it in the Ramadan Reset Guidebook that this is an essential ingredient you need to have in your Ramadan meals because it makes you feel fuller longer. Obviously, that's really beneficial when you're fasting because when you're fasting, you want to be feeling full during the day, right? But in addition, this helps at Iftar because if you're having high fiber foods, right? So for example, this is some white rice, which is lower fiber than, for example, brown pasta, right? Or brown spaghetti, or wholemeal couscous. So all of these have more fiber in them, right? And so if you're gonna be feeling full longer, you're gonna have more of that fullness, and so you're gonna be less likely to overeat because you feel more full, you feel greater level of satiation. So try and get that high fiber foods in. High fiber and high protein, typically you're gonna be overeating less on those items. So it's more difficult to overeat on higher fiber, high protein items than it is to overeat on those really, kind of quick acting carbs. Like everyone knows that you can shovel in a lot of rice into your body, right? Like some of that white rice, but it's a little bit harder to shovel in a lot of chicken of that same amount, right? So go for those lean proteins, go for that high fiber. That's going to help you just cut down on the amount that you're shoveling in. Number 6 tip is don't go for seconds, right? So as we discussed earlier, the bottom of your plate is a fullness cue, right? So when we get to the bottom of the plate, that's an environmental signal that tells you, okay, I can stop eating. And when you go back for seconds, we start to override this powerful environmental cue and tell ourselves that even when I reach the bottom of the plate, I'm not done. I'm gonna go back and I'm gonna come back with more food. So we really need to use this cue. I mean, in the environment that we live in, we have huge portion sizes. Everyone's encouraging us to eat. And so we already have very minimal environmental cues that tell us that we're full. So we need to use this plate. And so just a great rule for yourself is no seconds. And so that forces you to really look at the amounts that you're being served, decide what you're going to eat, how much you're going to eat, and then put that onto your plate from the beginning. For example, if you're at an Iftar party and someone else is portioning out your food, look at how much they're putting out for you, or even say, can I take it for myself? Because you should be able to portion the amount of food correctly for yourself. That's going to make a big difference. So think about those plates, all right? Okay, so tip number 7 is step away from the buffet. Okay, so when it comes to buffets, here's the problem. Not only do you have a lot of food out there, right? So it's like a bottomless amount of food, but you can always go back and take and take and take. And this is especially problematic if you are the type of person who, when your family eats Iftar, like you prepare this great spread and then you take everything with you to the table that you're eating, and then everyone sits around the table and there's all this food in the middle and everyone's having a great old time and eating and eating and eating. Now, the fact is that when you're sitting there, you have your plate, and then you have the rest of the unlimited food, like literally a handspan away. So you're gonna finish your plate, and then you're just gonna keep reaching into the unlimited source of food and keep taking and taking and taking. So that's really, really dangerous. That's just a foolproof solution to keep overeating. So I really encourage you to try and put some distance between you and the food source. So it doesn't have to be a lot of distance, but even something like leaving all of the food buffet in the kitchen, having the family serve themselves in the kitchen, and then going to the dining room to eat. This makes a really, really big difference. And you can actually use this to your advantage to keep the foods that you don't want to eat as much at a distance and bring the foods that you do want to eat more closer to you. So if your family struggles with eating vegetables, leave the entire spread in the kitchen, but bring the salad bowl to the table. What are you going to eat more of then? You're going to be eating more salad. So, think like a food marketer. Think that what are the cues in our environment that cause us to eat more, and use those to your advantage. If your whole family's struggling with salad, something simple like bringing the salad to them can have a very big, profound impact. All right, so no seconds, and keep the unlimited food away. Another interesting study that I want to tell you about is the unlimited soup bowl. So what they did is that they took a bowl of soup, and they kind of hooked it up to like this tube, you could think. So you could picture that this is an entire thing full of soup, and it has a tube in it, and so no matter how much you eat of the soup bowl, it's connected to this unlimited source of soup. Very interesting studies. They do great stuff in food science. So basically, the people who had this unlimited soup source, they ate so much more, significantly larger amount because of the unlimited quantity. And so that shows you that the bottom of the bowl overrides our own hunger and fullness cues, right? Because when the bowl isn't empty, we keep on eating. And that is what happens when we're in front of a buffet. The buffet becomes the unlimited food source. You're gonna keep reaching and reaching and reaching. I'll just have one more. Oh, I'll just have one more. Oh, just one more samosa. Oh, just another samosa. I've been figuring out how many samosas you're eating. So calm it down, leave the food in the kitchen, and bring the salad closer to you. Cool? All right, so we're on to tip number 8. This one's very interesting, okay? Tip number 8 for avoiding overeating is leave evidence of the carnage, okay? So here, it kind of relates to what we discussed about how you can eat unlimited amounts from the buffet. But basically, studies have shown that people, for example, when they're eating chicken wings, if they eat the chicken wings and leave the chicken bones on the plate, the bones serve as a reminder of how much you've eaten. So you actually eat less. Versus people who ate the chicken wings and threw out the bones, they ate a lot more because there wasn't any cue. There wasn't any reminder to be like, this pile of chicken bones is getting bigger by the minute. I must be eating loads of chicken wings. So keeping evidence of how much you've ate is really important. This is really easy to do if you're eating, like a dish like biryani where there's bones in your food. And so as you're eating, keep the bones on your plate. I know some people, they have like a food plate and a bone plate, and so then they like put all the bones on the plate and they just keep eating from the main plate. That's another guaranteed way to keep overeating because you're kind of ignoring the bone plate. Keep the bones on your plate. They take up room on the plate. They remind you, I'm eating a lot of food right now, and this is, just again, environmental cues to signal that you're full. Other than bones, another great way to do this is with shells of nuts. So if you're someone who is prone to overeating on pistachio nuts, especially, if you go to someone's house and they're like, oh, here's the pre-Iftar spread, usually there'll be some pistachio nuts. And then most people, they just throw their pistachio shells like in the garbage or, in a bigger bowl. But again, remember that these are high-calorie foods. So if you take, if you're peeling the pistachio shells, maybe keep your other hand open and put your shells in your own hand. So you're going to have to stop eventually because the shells are going to start overflowing from your hand, and that's a great indication that, wow, I've eaten so many of these nuts that it's overflowing in my hand. So leave behind evidence of the carnage that you have gone through, and you will be able to eat in a more controlled way. Bones, shells, anything like that, keep it on the plate, keep it in your hand, keep it there to remind you. All right, really, really important. Number 9, tip on how to stop overeating is to sleep more. Okay, if you look at our last video, we did an entire Facebook Live all about sleep and why sleep affects your hormones level. Sleep affects the amount of ghrelin that is produced. Okay, so ghrelin is a hormone that is produced that signals that you're hungry. We call it hungry bear ghrelin, okay? So the amount of hungry bear ghrelin, so hungry bear ghrelins are produced by your stomach. They go into your brain and say, eat more, eat more, eat more, eat more. And guess what? When you're sleep deprived, there's lots more hungry bear ghrelins produced. boost. So you really need to make sure that you're getting enough sleep as much as you can. You know, if you're after work, squeeze in, you know, like a little nap if you can. That's going to be helpful. Sleeping more will help you stop overeating. And the last tip number 10, is to exercise more. Okay, so I've worked with many women around the world, alhamdulillah, in my boot camp, and I find that the women who are exercising make better choices in their food and they're less likely to overeat. And it's just a psychological carryover factor. If you are exercising before iftar, as we encourage in the Ramadan Reset Guidebook, as we give you those schedules on how to make it happen, you are, you're feeling like, I did something really good for my health now. And then you're less likely to make a poor decision at iftar. You're less likely to take 3 helpings of, biryani, because you feel like, I did something good for my health, I want to keep that up. So exercising more is so important to help control that, to help make those better choices. And for those of you guys, I know that so many of you are asking, how do we exercise in Ramadan? You guys, you got to check out the Ramadan Reset Guidebook. If you have questions on how to exercise, the Ramadan Reset Guidebook answers everything. So you can see that we have full fitness schedules for all activity levels. So we go over schedules for the beginner. We give you basically everything you need, the exact workouts on how to make them happen, and then we even give you these timers that you can actually click through in the guidebook, open up the timer, do the workout at home, no equipment, body weight only. These are really working for so many people who have started off with the guidebook, mashallah. So if you want to exercise in Ramadan, check out the guidebook at amanahfitness.com/Ramadan. Like I said, we've made it very affordable. So if you have questions about your workouts, if you have questions about your health in Ramadan, this is the most comprehensive resource out there. And so, if you're struggling with your health, if you want to make it a healthier Ramadan, it's not too late to get started. Grab the guidebook. Obviously, we have a full money back guarantee, so literally you have nothing to lose. If you don't love it, let us know. All right, so alhamdulillah, we've had a lot of people jumping in there and really enjoying the guidebook, so make sure you check it out at amanahfitness.com/Ramadan for the Ramadan Reset Guidebook. Exercise is a surefire way to help you overcome your overeating. It's simple techniques, right? We went over 10 simple techniques to stop overeating. Just make them happen. If this list is too overwhelming, pick 2 or 3 techniques, or even just one technique. Even if it's just starting off your day with a cup of water, starting off your meal with a cup of water, that makes a big impact. So pick just one or a few techniques that we discussed in this video and use them to help you combat overeating inside your meals. All right, I have one more bonus tip here. When it comes to overeating, you gotta remember that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said that no human has filled a vessel worse than the stomach. Overeating is very much discouraged in Islam, and this is something that we as Muslims have completely forgotten. You go, into any masjid iftar and you just see everyone just shoveling food down, and then if you even mention healthy eating, everyone just kind of laughs and is like, oh, as long as everything's halal, it doesn't matter. And it's no, we're forgetting the ways that we have been instructed as Muslims to eat, and part of that is avoiding overeating. So if you ever need that motivation to reconnect with why you shouldn't be overeating, remember this hadith, that there is nothing worse than you can fill than your stomach. And that's how we get into Ramadan. Obviously, you all know that Ramadan becomes a month of feasting. Don't let it happen to you. Use these tips to avoid overeating at iftar, inshallah, and you will be good. And what's really sad is that, I've been reading recently, and there's some very expensive medical procedures that are being carried out. One of which is that you actually insert a balloon into the stomach. And once it goes into the stomach, this balloon inflates. And this is, people are paying thousands of dollars to get a balloon inserted into their stomach so that it inflates and makes them feel full. SubhanAllah. Would you rather pay thousands of dollars to get a balloon inserted in your stomach, or apply these portion control principles before this gets to be a problem? Obviously, for severe medical conditions, then you have to look at these alternatives. But for the regular Muslim, implement these principles. Take into account the hadith that we shouldn't be overeating. Apply these simple tips so that you don't have to get to a point where you're at a loss and I need an operation. I need, a balloon inserted in my stomach because I can't use my own fullness cues to help me get there. So important. We have the tools, we have the techniques to stop overeating, and it's in our deen to avoid overeating. Please implement some of these principles, inshallah. Focus on this. I would teach it to your family, share it with your friends, inshallah. If this video is beneficial, do give it a share, because I am so passionate about rediscussing overeating and making sure that as Muslims we start returning to this sunnah in balance in eating, inshallah. Alright, Jazakallah khair, guys. Thank you so much. I love the questions that we're getting. Let me know if there's other topics about Ramadan, health and fitness that you want to have us discuss, and we're definitely going to do those. And finally, as I mentioned, if you were really having questions questions about Ramadan, check out the Ramadan Reset Guidebook, amanahfitness.com/Ramadan. Alhamdulillah, there is no other resource that goes this much into depth in terms of your health and fitness and nutrition in Ramadan. We're really, really happy with the results and kind of the feedback we've been getting so far. So we would love to invite you to join us in the Ramadan Reset Guidebook. When you actually sign up there, you also get a free bonus workout that's amazing for Ramadan. It's a HIIT high intensity workout, 20 minutes. You get a full video workout when you sign up for the guidebook as well. All right, Jazakallah khair, guys. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Don't miss out. Grab the Ramadan Reset Guidebook for everything you need to know about healthy eating and exercise in Ramadan. The Ramadan Reset Guidebook was created by health and fitness professionals to give you all the tools you need for your healthiest Ramadan ever. From guidelines and a full 30-day meal plan optimized for your fasting state, as well as 90 dietitian recipes, along with fasting fitness schedules, and so much more. This guidebook is available now at amanahfitness.com/Ramadan.